As soon as I entered the company, everyone around greeted me with smiles. Congratulations, congratulations. From now on, you can't be called Secretary Vivian anymore, you have to be called Vice President Vivian. Vice President Vivian, please take good care of us from now on. Vice President Vivian has to treat everyone to dinner tonight to celebrate. From now on, we'll all be working under you. I looked at my colleagues' smiling faces and smiled with pursed lips, saying, it hasn't been decided yet. It's too early to say these things. It's already decided, just waiting for the formalities. Vice President Vivian, you're just being too modest. I smiled and waved my hand as I walked towards the conference room. My colleagues weren't just flattering me, I have worked at P Group for 10 years. Since Ethan started his business in his sophomore year, I have been by his side. Although I was called a secretary, I not only prepared proposals, negotiated partnerships, and researched the company's development direction, but also took care of his daily needs. It can be said that without me, there would be no P Group, nor would there be the Ethan of today. This vice president position is what I deserve. Suppressing the joy in my heart, I walked into the conference room, where the executives were already seated. However, unlike the atmosphere outside, the conference room was completely silent. When they saw me come in, the faces of my colleagues who had worked hard alongside me for many years were filled with undeniable resentment and pity. I paused, then looked at Ethan. His fingers were interlaced on the table, and beside him sat a woman with long black hair draped over her shoulders, wearing a pearl-white long dress. She looked completely out of place in the serious conference room. At that moment, my heart felt like it had plunged into ice water, yet still holding on to a glimmer of hope, I softly asked, Ethan, who is this? Ethan avoided my gaze and said casually, this is Sophia, the new vice president of our company. You can take her to HR later to handle the formalities. As for her workstation, it should be right next to my office. I stood still, feeling as if I had been slapped in public, my head spinning. The department manager nearby could no longer hold back and stood up, banging the table. Ethan, what do you mean by this? Wasn't it agreed that the VP position would go to Vivian? The HR manager frowned. Yes, we've all seen how much Vivian has contributed over the years. Now you're just switching people like that? It's not appropriate. These are colleagues who have worked hard alongside me for many years, and we've always had a good relationship. Ethan's expression darkened as he glanced around. After a moment, his voice carried a hint of anger. Am I the president, or are you all the president? The department manager stood firm. You are the president, but the company isn't yours alone. Is it reasonable for you to suddenly appoint someone as vice president out of thin air? Ethan sneered. Sophia has a master's degree in financial economics. Her education is higher than Vivian's, and she is more capable. I'm doing this for the good of the company. You all think with personal feelings, but company development can't be about favoritism. I looked at Sophia's familiar face and sneered, Ethan, stop talking nonsense. All this talk is just because she's your first love. Ethan and I have known each other since high school. Others might not know, but I have a very deep impression of Sophia. She was Ethan's first love. In the early years, their love was passionate and intense. Later, because Ethan wanted to start a business in the country and she wanted to study abroad, they had a big fight and broke up. Over the years, women have come and gone around Ethan, but none have stayed as long as Sophia did. Ethan, caught off guard by my ruthless exposure, looked a bit displeased. He leaned back in the huge leather chair and looked at me contemptuously. Sophia is my first love, but where am I wrong? She has a higher education and is better than you. Vivian, you have to accept reality. The meeting ended on a sour note, concluding with me slamming the door as I left. At my promotion meeting, they suddenly replaced me. I don't understand why Ethan would do this to me. He could have told me clearly in advance, but he chose the most humiliating way instead. Department manager Zachary was the one I poached back then. We worked together for 7 years. He was the most resentful, stopped doing any work, and came to my desk to complain sarcastically. I heard that Sophia caused some trouble abroad, got fired by the company, her reputation is ruined, and she can't find a job. That's why she came back. Have you seen her? None of us matter to them anymore, they're all just obsessed with that little lover of hers. It's disgusting, ugh. I said nothing, staring blankly at my desk. It had been used for so long that it was very worn, with scratches all over the edges. After 9 years at the company, I still didn't have a private office. At that time, Ethan said the office space was tight, and since I was running to his office every day anyway, there was no point in assigning me an office. It was better to give it to someone else. I foolishly agreed back then. But now, as soon as Sophia came in, she had her own office, with a luxurious redwood desk and chair, and the computer she uses is the most expensive high-spec MacBook. Only then did I realize that all the reasons were just excuses. It was simply that Ethan thought I wasn't worth it. Zachary took a sip of water and said resentfully, "Why don't you just quit? We've all worked with you. I think this lousy company is doomed sooner or later." I was silent for a moment, then softly said, "Would you be willing to?" He was stunned, silent. We have been fighting side by side since the company was just starting out. For us, this is more than just a job. Group P is a child I raised with my own hands. I can't bear to let go. The colleagues were even more dissatisfied than I was about Sophia becoming the vice president. Especially the higher-ups. We have worked together for so long without any conflicts of interest, and our bond has long been extraordinary. Although they couldn't openly oppose Ethan, they were still expressing their dissatisfaction behind the scenes. Sophia's work was progressing very poorly. Zachary, who was supposed to coordinate with her, simply refused to assign her important clients, only giving her trivial or particularly difficult client accounts. The information from other departments was like squeezing toothpaste out of a tube. They only gave it when she asked, and if she didn't ask, they wouldn't give it. Ethan angrily confronted them, but they just said, "I don't even know what she needs, and haven't I already given her everything she asked for?" Ethan had no other way, so he simply set his sights on me. He called me into the office and said tactfully, "You've worked hard all these years. You're called a secretary, but you have to do everything." I looked at him, expressionless. "If you have something to say, just say it." Ethan was somewhat displeased with my lack of tact, but still held back and said, "Sophia is here now, so you won't have to be so busy anymore. Just hand over those clients you have to her. From now on, you'll work solely as a secretary." He said it so casually, as if it were something unimportant. My body swayed slightly, unable to believe it. "What did you say?" The clients I had were all long-term clients I had worked with for years. He clearly knew what kind of price I had paid to secure these clients. At that time, the company was just starting out, and we were struggling with no resources at hand, forced to snatch clients in the cracks between larger companies. But it was easier said than done. Those people were each more difficult to deal with than the last. I still remember back then when we had just graduated, that client in his 50s with a big belly took us to a KTV, pointed at a row of drinks on the table, and grinned with his yellow teeth at Ethan, "You drink a glass, and I'll place an order worth 10 million. Don't say I didn't look out for you. This glass of wine is worth a lot, right?" Ethan was proud and arrogant, unable to tolerate such treatment, and angrily grabbed me, ready to leave. But I knew that if we lost this order, the company's cash flow wouldn't hold. All our hard work up to this point would be for nothing. I tilted my head up and gave him a reassuring smile, then pulled him to sit in front of that client. "Mr. Winston, he can't hold his liquor, so his little sister will drink with you." I still remember the sharp taste of that drink. It was whiskey, with a caramel color that burned like a fierce flame. As it went down my esophagus into my stomach, I had the illusion that my whole body was being set on fire. I don't drink, but that day I had 8 glasses. When I finally rushed to the bathroom, I vomited uncontrollably, feeling like all my insides were about to come out. Tears covered my face, but I still held tightly onto that client and made him sign the contract on the spot. He was stunned by how hard I was trying and gave me a thumbs up. "Little sister, you're awesome. Today I've really opened my eyes." Then he immediately placed a 10 million order with P Group. After he signed the last document, I fainted and was rushed to the hospital overnight. After a stomach lavage and a whole night of struggle, I barely clung to life. I remember when I opened my eyes, the morning light was faint, and Ethan was leaning over the hospital bed, his eyes red from crying as he looked at me. I forced a weak smile at him. "Why are you crying? Our baby is safe." Back then, he always called Group P our child. At first, I felt a little embarrassed, but when I was alone, I often secretly felt happy about this special, intimate term. I like Ethan, I know it, and he knows it too. Ethan was still very young back then, far from as composed as he is now. He choked up and said, "Why are you doing this? If it's gone, it's gone. Last night you almost. He couldn't continue, lowered his head, his body trembling slightly, with a choked voice, "Don't scare me like that anymore." But I thought it was worth it. Because of this incident, I later developed a serious stomach illness. It has lasted until now. After that, similar things happened several more times. Ethan was too young and hot-headed back then, unable to tolerate many things, and I was always the one standing in front of him. I loved him, and I was willing to do everything I could to help him, to protect his hard work. How foolish I was then, thinking I could suffer this for him. It was really wonderful. But Ethan, who once swore he would never let me down, now wants to push me out of the center of power in the company. I trembled as I said, "Ethan, you must know how much I've sacrificed for the company all these years. Why are you doing this to me?" Ethan frowned impatiently. "I know you've contributed a lot to the company, but who hasn't? Are you seriously going to keep bringing this up? Sophia just arrived and doesn't understand many things yet. You should hand over these clients to her first. Besides, what does a secretary need clients for?" "I won't," I said coldly. Ethan seemed surprised that I would refuse him and paused for a moment. "If I were you, I wouldn't make such a fool of myself." Sophia pushed the door open and walked in. She walked over to Ethan, looked up slightly, and sneered at me. "Don't think just because you've been here a long time that you can forget who you really are. The company belongs to Ethan. Without him, you're nothing." She narrowed her eyes and mocked, "If you're smart and cooperate with me now, you can keep your job. Otherwise, I'll just fire you, and you'll have no choice but to pack up and leave." I said nothing, only looked at Ethan and quietly asked, "Is that what you think too?" Ethan looked at me, his expression unchanged. "Sophia is the company's vice president. She has the authority to decide personnel matters." After a moment, I nodded calmly and said, "Understood." I tore off the work badge from my chest and threw it onto Ethan's desk. "You don't have to fire me. I'm quitting." Just as I stepped out, I saw a few people eavesdropping outside. Zachary was furious. How dare he be so shameless? "I'm quitting too. I'm coming with you." Others also looked sorrowful. "Vivian, you were the one who built Group P from the ground up. What will we do if you leave?" I forced a smile and patted Zachary on the shoulder. "Forget it, you still have a loan to pay off. I'll head out first. When I make it big, I'll definitely bring you over." On the day I left Group P, it was snowing. I hugged my belongings and looked back. The building was shrouded in falling snowflakes, its bright lights shining through the gloomy sky. I don't know if it was the snow that got into my eyes, but suddenly my eyes felt a little wet. This was the place I had worked for 9 years, watching it move bit by bit, from our dormitory to a small rental near the school, then to a 2-story shopfront, and finally settling into a high-rise in the city center. I still remember when we first came in, a few of us sat cross-legged on the empty floor, crying and laughing, boasting to each other about how we were about to make it big. I was once willing to risk my life to protect it, but in just a few short years, I have to say a complete farewell to it. After I left, I heard that Sophia, to assert her authority, even held a meeting to warn them that anyone who didn't cooperate with her would meet the same fate as me, leaving the company. Zachary showed no mercy and mocked her on the spot. What outcome? Getting hired by Group Q as a highly paid vice president? Sophia turned pale and couldn't continue the meeting, so she hurriedly left. She was too foolish. A versatile talent like me has always been highly sought after by all sides. In the early years, before P Group had grown in scale, many big companies tried to poach me, offering starting annual salaries in the millions. At that time, I rejected all offers and devoted myself wholeheartedly to Ethan and P Group, happily accepting a salary of just a few thousand yuan. But now, I no longer have to worry about so much. The day after I resigned, I called the president of Group Q, the arch-rival of Group P. "I heard you're short-staffed over there. What do you think of me?" President Henry of Q Group made an immediate decision. "I don't lack anything except a vice president. If you come, you can start in the position as soon as tomorrow." He wasn't joking with me. The next day, he took me through the formalities and introduced me to all the departments. "Miss Vivian will be the vice president of Q Group from now on. What she says is what I say. Over the next few days, all of you should report your work to her. From now on, you must cooperate with her properly." That evening, Henry held a welcome party for me. At the party, I raised my glass to him. "Mr. Henry, it is my honor to work with everyone at Q Group. I look forward to a pleasant cooperation." Henry curved his eyes with a carefree charm. "No, it is Q Group's honor to have invited Miss Vivian." The new work environment was much better than I had imagined. I finally had a large office. The people at Q Group didn't give me any trouble just because I came from P Group. In fact, within the industry, I had a certain reputation. They already knew about my work capabilities. Everything went surprisingly smoothly until I received my first major project. When I opened the files, I was stunned. This project was exactly the marketing collaboration with a group that I had worked on at P Group before. It involved a large sum and was very important to several companies in this city. Ethan didn't trust anyone else, so he had me oversee it personally. I spent half a month struggling to come up with a satisfactory proposal. Given how much Ethan values Sophia, this project must have been assigned to her by now. A fierce fire suddenly ignited in my heart. This is my first project since leaving Group P, and it's my chance to turn things around. This time, I'm going to show them what Group P is really like without me. On the day of the negotiation, Henry took me along. We hadn't even entered the door when we ran into Ethan, who had arrived at the same time. Sophia followed behind him, frowning slightly when she saw me. Ethan's expression was somewhat complicated. He looked at me and moved his lips, as if he wanted to say something. I passed by him without giving him a single glance. After the meeting started, we sat facing each other. I looked at Ethan, my heart filled with mixed emotions. This was the first time I wasn't sitting next to him, yet I never expected to be sitting directly opposite him. Fate truly plays tricks. The head of Group A pushed up his glasses. Today's project is very important to us. We also appreciate everyone's presence. Why don't we each present our proposals first, and then we can discuss and make a decision. Sophia eagerly stood up, took her proposal, and went to the front to start explaining. Group P has a strong advantage in precision marketing. Everyone can take a look. These are our previous successful cases, including the marketing we did for lean dining. In 6 months, their market investment, market share, and sales volume all increased significantly. I stared at her expressionlessly. All these cases were my work, and I couldn't believe she had the nerve to say them out loud. The more I listened, the more something felt off. The content of Group P's proposal sounded increasingly familiar. This was clearly the one I had written before. A surge of anger flared up in my chest, and I turned my head to glare at Ethan. I never expected him to be so shameless as to give the proposal I painstakingly worked on for so long to Sophia. I clearly handed that proposal to Zachary before I left. This must have been snatched by Ethan and given to her again. For a moment, I couldn't tell whether I felt more anger or more sadness. I worked as Ethan's secretary for 9 years, diligently and conscientiously. Even if he didn't like me, we were at least former partners. How could he be so shameless? Ethan probably felt guilty and didn't dare to look me in the eye. At that moment, I was completely disappointed in him. Sophia finished her presentation fluently, and I saw a trace of satisfaction in the eyes of the head of Group A. He praised, truly worthy of Group P, consistently maintaining a high standard. Miss Sophia, this proposal of yours is excellent. Sophia accepted the praise without any hesitation. Thank you. Then let's have Group Q speak as well. Henry nodded at me, and I walked to the front holding the proposal. This proposal was done hastily, and I can't say it's better than the one Sophia has. After listening, Group A just nodded and said, in that case. I interrupted, wait, I have a question for Miss Sophia. In your proposal earlier, you said that Group P has 18 marketing agencies in City S, but as far as I know, Group P actually only has 8. I wonder where the other 10 came from. This was a mistake I accidentally made when preparing the proposal, entering the wrong number. In the end, I left and never corrected it. Sophia was stunned, nervously flipping through the proposal in her hands under the gaze of the person in charge of Group A. But the more anxious she became, the harder it was to find that data. After all, it wasn't something she had created herself, she was just reciting it mechanically. I sneered, you can't even remember the data of something you made yourself? Or are you deliberately exaggerating, lying by any means to get the project? I pressed on step by step. Is this how you treat this cooperation with such an irresponsible attitude? How can the other party trust you like this? Sophia was completely flustered. She gritted her teeth and glared at me angrily. It's you who did this on purpose. I shrugged my hands innocently and said, this is your P Group's proposal, what does it have to do with me? The person in charge of Group A frowned. Data falsification is highly taboo in business. He said in a deep voice, Miss Sophia, what exactly do you mean by this? Sophia stammered and couldn't speak, while Ethan quickly tried to smooth things over. Sorry, it was our intern who made a mistake. In fact, it's just 8. Our P group has always had a good reputation, you can look at our previous cases. Before he finished, I coldly interrupted, I handled all the previous cases, what does that have to do with you? Lean foods, women's fashion, which marketing plan wasn't done by me, Vivian? How dare you say that? Henry smiled at the right moment. I forgot to introduce, our company's vice president, Miss Vivian, previously worked at P Group. All these successful cases you see were handled by her. If you choose to cooperate with Q Group, Miss Vivian will also be responsible for this marketing. When leaving the building, Ethan's face was darker than coal. Group A directly rejected Group P's proposal and signed a contract with us. The people from Group A spoke quite bluntly, immediately putting on a cold face. Group P has greatly disappointed us. You are too irresponsible, not even clear about how many institutions you have. We will no longer consider cooperating with Group P in the future. This project directly affects which of the two companies can occupy the majority of the market in CDS, and it is very important to both companies. Ethan valued this project very much and had prepared for a long time. It can be said that this failure will be a heavy blow to him. When he was with me before, he rarely experienced failure, so this time it was especially hard for him to accept. As he was leaving, he looked at me, his tone carrying an undeniable reproach. Vivian, you really show no mercy at all. I raised an eyebrow. Business is like a battlefield, Mr. Ethan. You wouldn't still be thinking about sentiment, would you? He clenched his fist, frowned at me, so it turns out that just the position of vice president is enough for you to betray our relationship. You really are, pragmatic. I stared at Ethan and noticed the seriousness in his eyes. He truly believed I was in the wrong. For a moment, I found it utterly ridiculous. So angry that I ended up laughing, curling my lips. Ethan, being a useless person is one thing, but being useless and shameless is another matter entirely. When I was here, you always relied on me, and yet you suppressed me, parachuting in someone like, I glanced at Sophia disdainfully, a useless person to snatch my VP position, and now you want me to blame myself for being realistic? You disgust me, I said, suppressing my smile, speaking each word deliberately. Ethan's face went pale, his mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. He looked at me in disbelief, as if he couldn't believe that I, who had always stood firmly by his side, would suddenly turn against him. I didn't look at him again and turned to leave. From the day he let Sophia kick me out of P Group, the last trace of my feelings for him was completely worn away. These 10 years were like a big dream. Now that the dream has ended, it's time for me to move forward. After a while, Zachary called me complaining, I really can't stand this Sophia. Didn't she say she was a top student? I think she acts like an idiot. She made a proposal full of holes, the numbers didn't even match, and she wouldn't let us review it, as if she was afraid we'd steal it. The client saw the proposal and flew into a rage, refusing to sign. I spent almost half a year negotiating this contract, and now it's ruined, what a jinx. He took a sip of water and continued, you don't know, in these past few months, she has almost offended all the clients. Recently, the performance has dropped by more than 40%. After hanging up the phone, I remained silent. I had actually anticipated this day long before I left. Over the years, I did everything I could to replace Ethan. I am the typical kind of person who loves so much that it feels like life depends on it, and hates so deeply it feels like death. When I like someone, I want to lay my heart bare for them and treat them with all my might. Only now do I realize that things that come too easily are often not cherished. I have protected Ethan too well. Over the years, all the cases he handled were carefully selected and prepared by me. His success has always been supported by me behind the scenes. Without me, he is nothing. I really want to go our separate ways from now on, but there are only a few big companies in CDS, so we still have to deal with each other frequently. In late October, Henry brought back a project. This company is from City B, quite large in scale, and recently wants to do a marketing project. Take a look. After studying it for a long time, I said in a low voice, we can't take this project. Look, this company is clearly quite large, and the budget is high. If their information is accurate and the product is good, why promote in our city instead of City B? To put it bluntly, can our market compare to City B? You better check their product, I'm afraid there might be some issues. A few days later, Henry came back with a serious expression. You were right. I had someone check it out. Their previous products had issues, and this company is nothing but a shell set up to clear out substandard inventory. If you hadn't been cautious, we would have been scammed. I thought the matter was settled, but when I ran into Ethan again at the industry association, I realized that they had actually taken on this case. Sophia linked her arm with Ethan's and sneered at me. "Vivian, do you really think P Group can't survive without you? We just landed a huge project, much bigger than anything you did before. You were just lucky before, riding on P Group's coattails. Don't tell me you actually believe the world would stop turning without you?" I looked at Ethan, wanting to say something but hesitating. Out of a desire for revenge, I didn't want to tell him the truth behind this matter. But P Group is a company I built from scratch, and I really can't bear to see it fall apart like this. Ethan misunderstood my meaning. He stared at me and said, "Vivian, I can live well without you. I'm not dependent on you." I swallowed the words on the tip of my tongue and chuckled lightly. "That's really great." In the following days, Ethan and Sophia were visibly proud and satisfied. This was the first project they completed after I left, and they were eager to announce it to the world, very high profile. All marketing agencies of Group P were working overtime to promote this product, putting in a great effort. But the higher you climb, the harder you fall on the day of judgment. On a late autumn night, the first explosive post about the promoted product appeared online. The promotion later expanded to include infant formula, but many babies who drank this formula ended up hospitalized with severe vomiting and diarrhea. At first, Ethan and his team could pay to suppress the posts, but as more and more explosive posts appeared, the situation quickly escalated and became serious. The complete loss of control occurred in November when 2 children over 1-year-old experienced breathing difficulties after drinking formula milk. They were taken to the hospital but died despite rescue efforts. This seemed to have stirred up a hornet's nest, and the matter escalated completely. People were furious, and all websites and news outlets reported on this tragedy. The company's dark secrets were fully exposed, and the P Group that promoted them also suffered, being thoroughly scrutinized and left with nothing to hide. How can the boss promote such a heartless product without fearing for their life, earning money but having no life to spend it? Why is this kind of product even allowed to be promoted? Is there some vested interest? I suggest a thorough investigation. This unscrupulous company must be shut down. For a time, the P Group was the target of widespread condemnation. Many of the previous clients were alienated by Sophia after she took office and left, while some followed me to Group Q. Those who remained were so shaken by this incident that they no longer dared to cooperate with Group P and all terminated their contracts. Ethan was overwhelmed and desperate, begging everyone for help, but to no avail. Just when I thought Group P was finally going to get a lesson, Zachary suddenly found me. After not seeing him for a few days, he looked very haggard, with dark circles under his eyes so deep I feared he might collapse on the spot. I was startled. "It can't be that bad, can it?" Zachary rubbed his face, saying nothing. After a long moment, he buried his head in his hands, his voice filled with mixed emotions. "Vivian, P Group is finished." I frowned. "It'll be fine once the storm passes, right? This time you guys didn't get it right, the main responsibility lies with the manufacturing company." Wongson gave a bitter laugh. "It's not just this. You don't know, P Group has been in chaos these past few days. After the incident, that idiot Sophia, desperate and reckless, sought advice from an old acquaintance who told her to bring out the company's documents to properly diagnose the problem. Isn't that leaking trade secrets?" I was taken aback. Zachary, holding his forehead tiredly, said, "Yeah. Only she didn't know, she really foolishly showed it to them, but they never intended to help. They wanted to take advantage of your illness to finish you off. Now all of P Group's proposals have been leaked, including those being prepared for clients. They're all suing, and the money in the accounts is nowhere near enough to cover the compensation. This time, P Group really might not make it. We've spent so many years building up P Group, how could it be ending so quickly?" I remained silent. In fact, I didn't know what to say. I had poured nearly 10 years of effort into P Group, and seeing it like this, it didn't feel right in my heart. "Why do you think Ethan insisted on bringing back someone who can't do anything as the vice president?" Zachary was baffled. "I thought he liked that Sophia, but I don't see them together. Last time Sophia wanted to invite him to dinner, he didn't even go." "I don't know." I shook my head. "I will never know what Ethan is thinking. Now, there's no need to know anymore." While we were eating, Zachary suddenly got a video call. On the other end, it was chaotic, noisy, and I couldn't make out what anyone was saying. "What's going on?" Zachary was puzzled. What's the commotion? The new intern was almost in tears. Manager Zachary. The police have come to take Vice President Sophia away, saying she leaked trade secrets and has been reported. The company is in total chaos now. Please come back quickly. I looked at the screen. The P Group office building was packed with clients, some of whom I even recognized. They pointed at Sophia, shouting furiously, "We gave you our information for marketing purposes, and we all signed confidentiality agreements. What do you think this means now? Our latest product information has been leaked. What about the losses caused?" Exactly. And us too, didn't we agree back then not to leak any secrets? Where is Vivian's secretary? When Vivian's secretary was here, nothing like this ever happened. How come since you arrived, our product information is flying everywhere? Has your P Group gone mad? Sophia's makeup was all smudged from crying, and she sobbed in panic. I don't know. I didn't know he was a scammer. How can you blame me? You should go find him. She only kept repeating these two sentences, going around in circles like a broken record, and the clients quickly grew impatient. Nonsense, we gave you the product information, not him. Why would we go to him? If you have something to say, don't say it to us, go tell the police. Saying this, the clients tried to pull her away, and Sophia reached out to Ethan in terror. Ethan, save me, I did all this for you, for the company. The HR manager sneered, how shameless. You almost ruined the company in the name of the company. Our little temple can't hold a big Buddha like you, so you'd better leave quickly. Sophia looked around, only to find everyone staring at her coldly. The company, which was once running smoothly, suddenly collapsed, and everyone faced layoffs. Who could show her any kindness now? Ethan. She cried, pleading. Ethan only glanced at her, his eyes filled with hatred. She was stunned for a moment before being pulled away. I didn't need to inquire deliberately about what happened afterward. The news spread throughout the city's companies. Every company learned from P Group's lesson, conducting self-inspections and confidentiality training to prevent similar incidents from happening again. P Group was ultimately unsalvageable, the compensation payments were too high, and the funds could not hold up at all. Even if Ethan put all his own money into covering the losses, it was difficult to reverse the decline, and in the end, it had to be sold at a very low price. P Group was finished, and Ethan was completely finished as well. Sophia was sentenced to 3 years in prison for leaking trade secrets. It was said that before going in, she was still shouting that it wasn't her fault, but no one paid attention to her, not even Ethan came to see her again. Henry and I took a day off, not really knowing what we wanted to do, so we just wandered along the street. As I walked, I looked up and saw the brightly lit building of Group P ahead, but the Group P sign had already been taken down, leaving it empty and bare. Unconsciously, I had come here again. The winter evening weather was unpleasant, with a cold wind howling past and a gray sky pressing down heavily. The day I left Group P was just like this. Only now, there were no lights shining anymore. I stood on the street corner with my hands in my pockets, just quietly watching until my eyes began to sting. From the age of 20 to 29, I poured my entire youth into this place, watching it grow bit by bit, from a few college students' playful ideas into a company with billions in revenue. This was once my dream, my belief worth fighting for all my life. Yet I never expected to witness its downfall so soon. I warmed my freezing, aching hands with my breath and slipped into a small wonton shop by the street. This shop is quite small, hidden here, known by few, and mostly frequented by regular customers. The owner saw it was me, wiped the table with a cloth, and warmly said, "You're here? Haven't seen you in a long time. Been busy with work lately?" I opened my mouth. Yeah, I've been really busy recently. Still mildly spicy? I nodded and walked over to a small table to sit down. The tables and chairs here were all greasy, seemingly impossible to clean, but the food was really good. Back in the early days when Ethan and I just started our business and had no money, whenever we craved something, we'd come here to order a few skewers and drink a couple of beers. He had a poor tolerance for alcohol. After just one bottle, he'd get tipsy, his face turning red as he babbled nonsense. One day, when we ring the bell at NASDAQ, we have to do it together. I laughed at him. Ringing the bell? I think you look more like a bell. We don't even have any clients yet. He just chuckled, the watery gleam in his eyes shimmering under the cheap incandescent bulb, sparkling brightly. Once the bell rings, we'll. The shop was too noisy, his voice too soft, I didn't catch it. We'll what? But he said no more, just smiled. It's only been a few years, yet here I am sitting in the old spot drinking beer, feeling something indescribable, both sour and bitter, painful. Everything has changed beyond recognition. How did it come to this? The curtain at the door was lifted, and a cold wind slipped in. Someone sat down in the empty seat in front of me. The boss laughed. You two used to come together, but later you came alone. I thought you had broken up, but it turns out you're still together. That's great. Ethan didn't argue. Boss, bring a case of beer. Okay, coming right up. He sat down as if no one else was there, picked up the beer I had left on the table, and took a sip. The cold beer, with its carbonation, made him furrow his brows tightly. I couldn't help but mock. Mr. Ethan, have you had too much foreign liquor that you can't handle beer anymore? Ethan said nothing. After a long moment, he lowered his head and softly said, Vivian, do you think I'm completely useless, a total failure? I sneered coldly. Does that even need to be a question? He forced a bitter smile. P Group is gone, it couldn't be saved, I sold it. I know. Ethan's voice was desolate. I always thought, actually, I could manage without you. I thought I no longer needed your protection. I took a sip of beer, suppressing the bitterness in my heart. I had ordered quite a few skewers, but Ethan didn't touch any, just kept drinking. He originally had a poor tolerance for alcohol and drank hastily, so soon his eyes were filled with a drunken haze. In a daze, I actually saw a glimpse of the young Ethan from back then, the one who wore a white t-shirt and insisted on taking me to ring the bell for the IPO, in the current Ethan dressed in a suit and tie. That Ethan has been gone for a long time. The Ethan now, let alone taking me to ring the bell, probably only wants to see me off in my final moments. Nowadays, I can only find a faint shadow of the past in him after he's been drinking. Vivian, do you know why I brought Sophia back to be the vice president? I thought for a moment. It's because you feel threatened by me, isn't it? I only realized this later. We're all adults, how could we still be playing those childish first love fairy tale games? Even if he really had feelings for Sophia, he wouldn't joke around with something as important as the company. I'm afraid it's just that he felt my authority in the company was too high, and I had already become a threat to him as the CEO, so he had to find a way to kick me out. Ethan laughed, but that laugh was more painful than crying. No, I just wanted to prove to you that without your protection, I, Ethan, can still manage. Do you still remember the time you were forced to drink? How could I possibly forget? Even now, late at night, my stomach still aches faintly. You didn't drink before either. He looked at me with blurry eyes, as if looking through me into a time long, long ago. When you were rushed into the emergency room, the doctor gave me a critical condition notice. You don't know how scared I was then. I even thought I didn't want the company anymore, I didn't want to start a business anymore, I just wanted you to be okay. I didn't know if it was the bitterness of the alcohol or the bitterness in my heart, but after hearing his words, I vaguely felt like I was about to cry. Ethan downed the drink in his hand, his eyes gradually reddening, and he crushed the can with force. At that time, I felt like I was really useless, needing you to protect me like this. I whispered, that was because I wanted to. I liked you back then, only wishing for your well-being, unable to bear seeing you suffer. Then can I watch? He suddenly asked. All these years I never responded to you, not because I didn't like you, but, he lowered his head, pain mixed in his voice, I felt I wasn't worthy. What right does a man who always needs a woman to protect him have to say he loves? I've been holding my breath, thinking that one day I could make it so you wouldn't have to be so tired anymore, that I could protect you instead. His voice cracked with tears. I just don't want you to stand in front of me anymore. A grown man almost 30 years old was crying uncontrollably at a roadside barbecue stand. I took a sip of wine, feeling the cold liquid slide down and warm my stomach. After a moment, I said, don't put it so nicely. You might have a bit of that thought, but isn't your competitiveness the most important thing? You can't accept being outdone by me, so you always hide behind me, using these means to force me out. Even if it's not Sophia, there will be someone else. In any case, I can't stay at Group P. Ethan was silent, no longer speaking. I finished the last bottle of wine and stood up. Boss, he's paying the bill. The boss smiled warmly, all right. I picked up my coat and lifted the door curtain. It was snowing outside, though I didn't notice when it started. The snowflakes, like goose feathers, danced in the wind, glowing a warm, dim yellow under the surrounding lights. Behind me, Ethan called out, his voice trembling, "Vivian, if I said I was wrong, would you come back?" I said nothing, lowered the curtain, and stepped into the wind and snow. In late January, just as I was preparing to resign, Zachary called me. On the phone, his voice was weary, carrying an indescribable complexity. Ethan was in a car accident. Is it serious? I tightened my grip on the cup in my hand. Zachary was silent for a long time before softly saying, one leg couldn't be saved and was amputated. His hand was also broken, although it was reattached. The doctor said he will probably only be able to do the lightest activities from now on, unable to lift anything heavy. My mind went blank, and I said in confusion, how could this happen? He went out drinking, then drove on the highway, drunk driving, and crashed. Zachary said gloomily. P group is gone, and he's probably the one suffering the most. If you have time, go see him. After hanging up, I still couldn't believe it. I sat at my desk all afternoon, unable to focus on anything. Whenever I closed my eyes, all I could see was Ethan's face covered in blood. Someone as proud as him, now disabled for life, how could he ever accept that? However, after much hesitation, I still decided not to see him. Ethan has been competing with me for so long, and now like this, he surely doesn't want me to see him in such a miserable state. Our relationship has come to this point, from meeting in our youth to growing to loathe each other, it has finally reached its end. This bond, tangled with too many emotions, was ultimately too fragile. Before a word was even spoken, it had already shattered. Let it end here. I look out at the blood-red sunset. It was a mistake from the start, and it can end here. When I submitted my resignation, Henry desperately tried to persuade me, do you think the company's treatment is not good? If there's anything you're dissatisfied with, you can tell me, and I'll change it. I smiled and shook my head. The company has been very good to me, and Mr. Henry has also recognized my worth. It's just that I'm a bit tired and want to take a break for a while. Henry said regretfully, then you must come back after your break. The doors of Q Group will always be open to you. In the days that followed, I traveled everywhere, Chengdu, Hangzhou, Inner Mongolia, Tibet. I traveled abroad to the Maldives and Egypt, toured around Europe, and then went to Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. I had devoted the best years of my life to work, but after so many things happened recently, I suddenly realized that I had never truly enjoyed life. I indulged myself, walking barefoot on the glowing beaches of foreign lands, galloping across vast endless grasslands, and losing myself under Iceland's starry sky in the mesmerizing northern lights. Life is not just about work, only now do I understand a different kind of happiness. In the height of August, Zachary sent me a WeChat message. Is it about time? You're almost becoming a travel blogger. It's about time you came back to work. I laughed and scolded, you're already laid off and still thinking about work? Aren't you pathetic? Zachary chuckled, I'm proud. So, when are you coming back? The rest of us are all waiting to start over together. I looked at the suitcase in my hand and smiled slightly, I've already gotten off the plane. This time, I will definitely take you to ring the bell at Nasdaq. In the distance, the sunrise at the horizon, the morning sun shining brightly. The end.